Differentiate what you can control from what you cannot. This single discipline has the power to dismantle the machinery of overthinking at its root. Much of mental exhaustion comes from investing emotional energy into territories that do not belong to you. Outcomes, other people's opinions, timing, luck, reputation, external recognition, these exist outside your command. Yet the mind repeatedly wanders into these domains, attempting to negotiate with uncertainty as though persistence alone could bend reality. It cannot. What belongs to you is narrower, but infinitely more powerful. Your judgments, your choices, your effort, your preparation, your integrity, your response. When you confuse influence with control, anxiety multiplies. Influence is partial and indirect. Control is direct and sovereign. You may influence how someone perceives you, but you cannot control their perception. You may influence the success of a project through diligence, but you cannot command its reception. The Stoic discipline lies in drawing this boundary with precision and refusing to let emotion cross it. Overthinking often begins with hypothetical scenarios. What if they misunderstand me? What if I fail? What if this does not work? These questions attempt to pre-solve an uncontrollable future. Instead, the sharper inquiry is, what is required of me right now? That question relocates attention to action. It converts speculation into responsibility. It transforms passive worry into active agency. When you anchor your attention to what is within your control, you reclaim psychological authority. You stop negotiating with uncertainty and begin strengthening character. Effort becomes your currency. Discipline becomes your safeguard. Integrity becomes your internal compass. The mind no longer drifts toward imagined verdicts from an unseen jury. It returns to the present capacity to choose wisely. There is a profound calm in accepting limits. Acceptance is not resignation, it is clarity. It acknowledges that the world operates according to countless variables beyond personal command. Markets fluctuate, people change their minds, opportunities appear and vanish. You can prepare, adapt, and respond, but you cannot orchestrate the entire symphony of events. Once this truth is internalized, overthinking loses its illusion of usefulness. Replaying conversations cannot alter them. Anticipating every outcome cannot guarantee safety. What you can do is refine your conduct. This distinction demands continual practice. The mind will attempt to blur the boundary, insisting that if you think just a little longer, you might prevent disappointment. Yet disappointment itself is often born from attachment to outcomes rather than devotion to effort. When effort becomes your focus, self-respect replaces anxiety. You measure yourself not by results, but by the quality of your engagement. Drawing the line of control also protects emotional equilibrium. Praise and criticism lose their destabilizing force when you recognize they originate from perspectives you do not govern. You may examine feedback for improvement, but you are not required to surrender peace to it. By narrowing your sphere of concern to what is authentically yours, you create resilience. External volatility cannot easily shake an internal structure built on disciplined choice. Each moment presents a silent decision. Dwell on what may happen, or act upon what can be done. The disciplined mind selects the latter. It understands the power does not lie in predicting the future, but in preparing oneself to meet it with steadiness. Overthinking thrives in ambiguity. Clarity starves it. By differentiating what you control from what you do not, you cultivate a mental environment where effort places fear, responsibility replaces rumination, and composure replaces chaos. Replacing excessive thinking with immediate, purposeful action is one of the most effective ways to silence the mind's endless loops of speculation and anxiety. Overthinking often masquerades as preparation, convincing us that prolonged rumination will produce better results, when in reality it usually fosters indecision and fear. The human mind has an innate tendency to spin scenarios, weighing probabilities and imagining outcomes. But without action, thought becomes a trap rather than a tool. Purposeful action transforms abstract worry into tangible progress. It converts imagined possibilities into concrete steps, shifting energy from hypothetical outcomes to practical influence. Action interrupts the cycle of overthinking because it grounds thought in reality. The mind is highly sensitive to motion. When the body or intention is engaged, the abstract anxieties that dominate idle cognition lose their grip. Even small actions create momentum. Sending a single email, making one phone call, drafting a paragraph, or organizing a task list can provide immediate evidence that progress is possible. Each act demonstrates to the mind that it is not powerless, that control exists within the domain of effort, and that fear is often exaggerated in imagination. Momentum from action reduces the mental space available for endless what-ifs, replacing uncertainty with accomplishment. The practice of replacing thought with action also fosters clarity. Overthinking tends to blur priorities, magnifying trivial details while obscuring the essential. By taking deliberate steps, you reveal what matters most. Each action acts as feedback, allowing the mind to adjust assumptions and strategies. What initially seemed overwhelming may reveal itself to be manageable once engaged with directly. The mind learns to trust experience rather than conjecture. This is not impulsive behavior. It is calculated, disciplined activity that transforms contemplation into informed movement. Action, therefore, is both corrective and educative. It demonstrates what works, exposes what doesn't, and gradually diminishes the paralyzing fear of the unknown. Overthinking is often a mask for hesitation or fear. The mind convinces itself that extended analysis equals wisdom, yet frequently, the real obstacle is reluctance to face possible failure. Immediate, purposeful action confronts fear head-on. It is a declaration that preparation alone is insufficient, and that mastery comes from engagement rather than speculation. The act of starting, even without certainty of outcome, redefines competence as participation, not prediction. Once you act, the mind shifts from imagined obstacles to observable challenges, which are far easier to address and adapt to. Another significant benefit of action over thought is the cultivation of discipline. Overthinking arises from mental wandering and indecision. Action requires focus. Choosing one concrete step and committing to it, rather than endlessly debating alternatives, strengthens self-control and resilience. The habitual translation of thought into action builds confidence, proving repeatedly that effort is effective and that fear can be managed. The mind, trained through action, begins to anticipate engagement rather than apprehension, creating a positive feedback loop where doing alleviates anxiety. Action also bridges the gap between intention and reality. Ideas, plans, and strategies remain inert without execution. Overthinking elevates planning to a form of false productivity, but tangible results only emerge through action. When the mind engages in deliberate movement, it aligns thought with circumstance, reducing the distance between potential and manifestation. Each step, no matter how small, transforms abstract concern into measurable progress, diminishing the psychological weight of uncertainty. This approach encourages experimentation, learning, and adaptation, cultivating a mindset where overthinking is replaced by practical inquiry, where fear is replaced by evidence, and where possibility becomes a matter of doing rather than endless deliberation. Neutralizing fear through realistic worst-case reflection is a powerful method to dismantle the grip of overthinking because most mental anxiety is fueled by imagined catastrophes rather than actual events. When the mind anticipates future scenarios, It tends to magnify threats, exaggerate consequences, and dramatize outcomes in ways that rarely correspond with reality. Overthinking thrives in this inflated space of possibility, convincing us that we are preparing for danger when we are actually rehearsing distress. By deliberately considering the worst realistic outcome, you bring those fears into the light of rational scrutiny, exposing their actual size and manageable nature. This practice does not encourage pessimism. Rather, it inoculates the mind against paralyzing speculation by showing that even in the worst-case scenario, survival, adaptation, and learning remain possible. When you consciously visualize the worst realistic scenario, you remove its mysterious power. Fear gains momentum when left undefined, when it is an amorphous force that the mind cannot negotiate with. By naming the potential outcome, imagining the practical consequences, and evaluating your response, you transform anxiety into actionable insight. For example, if a project fails, a relationship ends, or an opportunity is lost, you ask yourself, what would truly happen? Would life end? Would growth be impossible? Would I be unable to recover? Often, the answers reveal that the consequences are far less threatening than the mind imagines, and that resources, skills, and resilience exist to manage the situation. This process also sharpens preparedness without inducing obsession. Overthinking often arises from a desire to cover all bases before taking action. Yet endless anticipation without resolution leads only to indecision. Worst-case reflection allows the mind to examine the extreme outcomes in a controlled, deliberate manner, establishing a mental plan for response. You acknowledge potential obstacles, identify your capacity to cope, and return to the present with reduced anxiety. The mind recognizes that it has already rehearsed the challenge, and therefore, there is no reason to endlessly ruminate. The hypothetical threat is no longer abstract. It has been converted into a concrete, manageable scenario. Moreover, this practice encourages psychological resilience. When you repeatedly face imagined adversity in a structured way, the mind develops tolerance for uncertainty and discomfort. Fear is no longer a paralyzing force. It becomes a guide for preparation and adaptation. The repeated exercise of confronting worst-case outcomes diminishes the emotional amplification that overthinking relies on. Each rehearsal, carefully bounded and rational, trains the mind to respond to stressors with composure rather than spiraling anxiety. You learn that even if events unfold unfavorably, your inner resources, problem-solving abilities, and adaptability can navigate the situation. Worst-case reflection also promotes clarity in decision-making. Overthinking thrives on ambiguous probabilities and undefined threats, creating a fog in which every choice seems fraught with potential disaster. By identifying the worst plausible outcome and evaluating your ability to handle it, decisions are simplified. The mind can weigh risks realistically, prioritize action, and distinguish between genuine threats and imagined ones. This clarity allows you to allocate energy to meaningful preparation instead of wasted worry. Finally, the practice fosters detachment from outcomes without diminishing commitment. Overthinking is often rooted in attachment and emotional investment in a particular result or scenario. Worst-case reflection exposes the limits of control, highlighting that external events cannot fully dictate your well-being. While you still pursue goals with diligence, you do so from a stance of preparedness rather than desperation. The mind becomes oriented toward action, not endless speculation, recognizing that peace of mind is cultivated through readiness and perspective rather than futile mental simulation. Setting strict time limits for analysis and reflection is a highly effective method to curtail overthinking because it transforms wandering thought into disciplined, purposeful cognition. Overthinking often occurs when the mind is allowed unlimited freedom to replay scenarios, evaluate possibilities, and speculate endlessly about the future or the past. Without boundaries, thought becomes a self-perpetuating cycle where anxiety is amplified rather than resolved. By imposing a structured time frame for reflection, you create a container that forces the mind to focus on what is essential, prioritize insights, and then release what cannot be immediately resolved. This practice turns rumination into a productive exercise rather than a source of mental exhaustion. The human mind has an inherent tendency to drift toward hypothetical concerns when it perceives open-ended possibilities. Without a clear temporal boundary, the brain interprets uncertainty as a signal to continue processing, replaying events, or projecting potential outcomes indefinitely. This unrestricted mental activity consumes cognitive resources, generates emotional tension, and often leads to decision paralysis. When you establish a defined window for thought, whether it is 5, 10, or 15 minutes, you give your mind a framework that encourages efficiency and prioritization. Within this period, you examine the issue critically, weigh relevant factors, and articulate potential solutions or strategies. After the time expires, the reflection is concluded, and attention is intentionally redirected to action or present engagement. Time limits also enhance clarity of thought. When you know that analysis must occur within a fixed duration, the mind naturally filters out distractions, irrelevant details, and excessive hypotheticals. It focuses on identifying key variables, actionable insights, and necessary decisions. This concentrated effort contrasts sharply with overthinking, which often involves diffuse, scattered attention that exaggerates uncertainties and inflates minor risks. By restricting the window of reflection, you train your mind to prioritize relevance over speculation, to distinguish between solvable problems and uncontrollable circumstances, and to focus on what is practically actionable rather than what is merely imagined. Moreover, time-bound reflection cultivates decisiveness. One of the hallmarks of overthinking is hesitation, often stemming from the belief that extended contemplation will produce certainty or eliminate risk. In reality, no amount of thought can guarantee perfect outcomes. By allocating a specific time frame for evaluation, you acknowledge that perfection is unattainable, but clarity and preparedness are within reach. The expiration of this time frame signals a transition from contemplation to action, reinforcing the principle that thinking is a means to an end, not an end in itself. This disciplined approach reduces mental fatigue, increases productivity, and strengthens confidence in one's judgment. Setting limits also encourage the habit of intentional reflection. Instead of allowing the mind to drift into idle speculation throughout the day, you create a structured practice in which contemplation has purpose, scope, and duration. Journaling, focused analysis, or deliberate mental review can be confined to these allocated periods, ensuring that reflection is productive rather than compulsive. The mind learns that it has a designated time to evaluate concerns and that committing fully to the present task at hand is one of the most profound methods to curb overthinking, because overthinking almost always originates in either the past or the future. The mind has a tendency to replay what has already occurred, or speculate endlessly about what might happen. It is in these temporal distractions that anxiety, regret, and indecision find fertile ground. The present moment, however, is the only arena in which true agency exists, the only place where thought can be converted into action, and intention can manifest into tangible results. By anchoring attention in the current task, you redirect mental energy away from abstract hypotheticals and toward practical, meaningful effort. Overthinking often thrives on ambiguity and imagined scenarios. When you are mentally absent from the task in front of you, the mind constructs endless possibilities, weighing probabilities, anticipating outcomes, and replaying past interactions in search of mistakes or alternative decisions. This process can feel productive, but it rarely produces solutions. By contrast, committing fully to the present moment engages the mind and body together. Attention becomes concentrated, senses are sharpened, and decisions emerge organically as a result of active engagement rather than passive speculation. The present task becomes a tool to test ideas, gather information, and refine judgment in real time, reducing the space available for anxiety-driven rumination. Focusing on the present also fosters mastery and competence. Overthinking often arises from a fear of inadequacy or failure, an internal dialogue that magnifies every possible negative outcome. When the mind is fully occupied with the immediate task, performance becomes the measure of success rather than hypothetical outcomes. Skills improve through direct application, and confidence builds through repeated, deliberate practice. The habit of presence trains the mind to trust its capabilities, reinforcing the principle that preparation and action in the present yield more meaningful results than endless contemplation about what could go wrong. Each completed action serves as proof of competence and builds resilience against future doubt. Another critical benefit of present-focused engagement is the reduction of cognitive overload. Overthinking consumes mental resources by scattering attention across numerous hypothetical concerns. By concentrating fully on one task, the brain can allocate energy efficiently, enhancing productivity and clarity. This focused engagement allows the mind to process information more effectively, notice details that might otherwise be overlooked, and make timely, informed decisions. Mental clarity arises not from the quantity of thoughts, but from their quality and directed purpose, and immersion in the present ensures that thought is applied constructively rather than diffusely. Anchoring in the present moment also cultivates emotional balance. Overthinking is often accompanied by heightened emotional reactivity because the mind amplifies perceived risks or failures. When attention is devoted to the task at hand, emotional energy is channeled into productive engagement rather than worry. The sense of accomplishment that arises from progress, no matter how incremental, stabilizes mood and reduces the intensity of anxious rumination. Each step forward reinforces a sense of control over one's environment and choices, which is the antidote to the helplessness that often fuels overthinking. Furthermore, present moment commitment encourages adaptability. Life is dynamic, and circumstances change in unpredictable ways.